Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third meeting of Management Accounting class with me, Indah Matasriani. So today we're going to move to the next topic. It's about standard costing. So you can access the standard costing on chapter 9 from the Hansen Norman book. Okay, so in this chapter, we're going to learn how to set the unit standards and why the standard costing system are adopted. And we're also going to have to state the purpose of the standard cost sheet, describe the basic concept related to the variance analysis, and how they are used for the control. Okay, and then compute the materials and labor variances and how they are used for the control, and followed by calculate the variable and fixed overhead variances and prepare the unit entries for variances. Okay, let's start it. So in this chapter, as I taught before, we are, so in order to achieve the first objective, we have to know how to set the standard, how the unit standards are set, and why the standard costing systems are adopted and used. Okay, so first of all, we can just start by saying that cost control. So the cost control itself, sometimes it means that there is a difference between the success and the value, or between above average profit and lesser profit. So what do I mean here? When we want to do the cost control, things that the company have to know is about how about the projective, how about the profit that we get now in the current condition if compared with the previous one. Okay, so you can see on the book there's an illustration on the first one. Okay, so we're going to start this one by I'm just going to give the brief information. Actually, before this one, in the chapter 8, so there are material that cover about budget. So budget actually set the standard that will be used for control and evaluate the performance of the manager role, right? But budget actually the aggregate measure of the performance. So actually the budget is identifying the revenue cost in total, right? So things that has been organized if the plan that has been implemented. So by comparing the actual cost and the actual revenue with corresponding to the budget amount at the same level. So this can be, this can be measure the efficiency of the manager. Okay. No. Although the process is actually just provide the significant information for the control, but the control itself can be enhanced by developing standard for the unit, as well as for the total amount of that, right? So back to this one, the unit standard cost for the particular input actually relies on the quantity standard and the price standard. Okay, so if you want to know the unit standard cost, that's why we're going to jump and go into detail about the quantity standard. So what is the quantity standard? The quantity standard is about amount of the input that should be used per unit of output, right? So remember, the quantity standard is amount of input that should be used per unit of the output. And how about the price standard? So for example, if they're in the company, they want to produce, for example, a clothing. So how much the raw material that they need. So how the quantity is, and so how much the quantity standard, right? So that should be the input that they have to put in order to produce one product. Okay. And how about the price standard? So the price standard is actually the amount that should be paid for the quantity of the input to be used. So the price standard is the amount that have been paid, what should be paid. So sometimes, for example, if company want to produce like clothing, so then it go to the textile industry and maybe have to buy the fabric, right? But probably the price has been going down. So I mean, sometimes increase, sometimes decrease. So the company have to set the standard price. So that was the the standard that be the guidance for the management in order to know the performance. Okay. So okay. So for example, so I'm just going to give you a brief example. So there is a soft drink bottle company that may decide that the 5 ounce of the fructose should be used for every 16 ounce of bottle. So can you imagine that the Coca-Cola, for example, the Coca-Cola, they decided to put fructose, fructose. So 5 on the fructose itu should be used for every 16 ounce bottle of the cola. So that's we call quantity standard. And the price of fructose should be around 0.05 per ounce. Now, this is the price standard. Okay. So the standard cost of the fructose per bottle of the cola is then how much? 5 pain times 0.05. Okay, so it's going to be 0.25. So actually the standard cost can be used to predict what the total cost of the fructose should be used as the activity level varies. Okay, so can be used for the formula of the budget. So if 10,000 bottles of cola are produced, right, so the total expected cost of the fructose is around 10,000 times 0.25, right? But if the 15,000 bottles produced, so the total expected cost will be 3,750. Okay, so that was the illustration. So I'm just gonna trying to make the annotate here. So the illustration before said that the quantity standard of right, so the quantity standard of the fructose is around 5 ounce, right? So 5 ounce of the fructose. Okay. And then the price standard is 0.05 per ounce. So how to calculate the standard cost? The standard cost will be 5 times 0.05. So it will be becoming 0.25. Okay. So based on the standard cost, we can calculate the total costs of the practice. So for example, as I mentioned before, I'm just going to put this one here. So for example, if the around so the 10,000 bottles produced, so how much is actually going to be the total expected cost of this practice? Yeah. So it's going to be 10,000 times 0.25. Okay. Okay. And how about, for example, they will be produced around 15,000 bottles. So the total practice would be 15,000 times 0.25. Okay. So it would be didn't count this one yet. So it would be 2,500. Okay, so that was the illustration for that case. Right, so next slide. I'm just going to clear all of the drawing. This. Okay. So probably another question will be coming. How actually the standard will be developed, right? So yeah, actually, there are three potential sources for the quantitative standards. So it can come from the experience, studies, and operating personnel, right? So process in operating, right? So that could be the guidance, right? So, but among three of them, the engineering studies can determine the most efficient way to operate. It can provide the very rigorous guidelines. However, sometimes not true. So they may not be achievable by operating personnel, right? So how the price standard? So price standard is a joint responsibility between operations, purchasing, personnel, and accounting, right? So what the operation going to be covered in here? So in operation, that will be determined the quality of the input. Okay, the quality of the input that has been required. Right, so the purchasing, for example, so they have responsibility to acquiring the input quality requested at the lowest price. Okay, so in setting the price standard, purchasing must consider, for example, discount, so freight cost, and the quality itself. But in personal, on the other hand, so they have to consider about payroll taxes, right? So fringe benefits, and also the qualification. And in accounting, will be responsible for recording the price standards, preparing the reports that will be compared between the actual performance and the standard. Okay, so that sort of things that the department will be cover up. So now let's next. Okay, so now we're moving to the top of the standard. So the standard is actually, can be classified into, we can classify into two main idea. The first one is ideal standard, right? So the ideal standard demand the maximum efficiency. So it can be achieved only if the everything operates perfectly. So there is no, breakdown machine. So there is no lack of scale. So everything's under control. So everything is in standard procedure. So that was ideal standard. So it's attainable standard. How about the attainable standard? So attainable standard, so we can say that attain, ini bisa dicapai, attain, right? So attainable standard so can be achieved under the efficient operating conditions, right? So under efficient operating conditions. So for example, the allowance will be met for there is the interruptions and probably there is condition when less than perfect skill. The standard is actually demanding but achievable, so we can just achieve it, right? So of the two types, actually the currently attainable standard over the most behavioral benefits. Because if the standard are too tight and never achievable, probably in the real world workers, so they will become frustrated and it will be make the effect for the performance, right? So the performance level will decline, right? However, the challenging but achievable standard tend to extract higher performance level, especially when the individual have participated in their creation, right? So that was things that talking about the standard. I think we can, try to practice in our real life when we're talking about the standard. So probably in your family, right? So if your parents set the ideal standard, I mean, if everything's perfect condition, so if there is nothing wrong with you, well, having a college for the 3.5 years, so probably you can get around, probably the perfect GPA, right? So you can get the perfect mark. But sometimes the condition does not exist like that. So you have a problem while studying, and especially during this pandemic, right? So during this pandemic, you have some trouble to the assignment and probably doesn't get the idea what your lecturer said to you. So actually, but if your parents still push you to get the perfect mark, so that probably can, decline your performance because it feels like you're frustrated. Right. All right, so that was the things about the standard. Okay. Next one, standard cost system. So why actually the standard cost system are adopted? So basically, there are two reasons for adopting the standard cost system. First one is to improve the planning and control, and the second one is to facilitate the product costing. Okay, so this is just all right. So we go to the first one. Actually, standard costing system will be enhanced the planning and control and will be improved the performance measurement. Okay, so why can we say that? Because we do have some planning and we do have control. If we do control and planning, this can be, this can be control. We can control any weaknesses happen during the performance, right? So, for example, like before, we set the standard price, right? So the company set their standard price. So when they are setting the standard price, it's actually based on what? Based on experience, right? Based on the person, so based on things that done before, and also based on the current condition. So they have been planned it. Probably they can set the price standard a bit higher or maybe a bit lower, right? So, but they know it's already going to be happening. Okay, so that's why we have to know the unit standard. So this is actually the basic requirement for the flexible budgeting system. This is the key feature of the planning and control system. So as I mentioned before, a budgetary control system will be compare the actual and the budget cost. So how can we do that? So we will compute the variances. So the variances is about the difference between the actual and the planned cost for the actual level of activity, right? So by developing unit price and also the quantity standards and overall variance can be, can be divided into price variance and efficiency variance, okay? So for example, if the variance is unfavorable, the manager can tell whether it is attributable to any discrepancy between planned price and actual, so probably related to the planned usage and the actual usage, right? But since the manager have the control over the usage of the input, then over the prices, so the efficiency variances will be provide the specific signal, right? So regarding to the need for the corrective action. This in principle, the use of efficiency variances will be enhanced the operational control. So that was the link between that, right? Okay, so for example, in the material price variance, so it will be encouraged the purchasing department to buy probably large quantities, right, to take the advantage of the discount. So probably will be holding, they're going to try to holding the significant inventory. Sometimes this is not desired by, the certain firm. Okay. So actually, the standard cost system are widely used by the firm, especially for the manufacturing system, right? So based on the survey, around 87% of the firm responding use the standard cost system, right? So 87. Okay, now, so the next one is product costing, why we adopt the standard cost system, right? So in the standard cost system, the cost will be assigned to product by using the quantity and the price standard for the free manufacturing cost. So if I can recall to all of you guys, this is actually things that have been done in cost accounting, right? So what are the three manufacturing costs? So the first one is direct material, okay, direct labor and overhead, right? Okay, so okay, and the other hand, so I'm just going to check whether there you go. So this is standard cost per unit. So this is the thing that talked before. There are three types of manufacturing cost. It consists of direct material, direct labor, and overhead. Okay. I think you've been, watched the video, right, related to the classification of the costing system. So the one that by the way have been explained on the video also. So basically there are three costing system, right? So the first one is the actual costing. The second one is a normal costing system. And the third one is standard costing system. Okay. Right. So the standard cost is actually can be used for the service organization. So for example, we just can, okay. So how about in the manufacturing firm? So the standard cost per unit is actually the sum of the standard costs for direct material, direct labor, and overhead. Okay, so how about the standard cost sheet that I said before in the very first time? So this will provide the detail underlying the standard unit cost. Okay. Now, just gonna. Oh, I didn't have it translated here. But let me just move it. Okay, now let's have a look at this one. Okay, so this is the illustration that I got from a book, right? So this is actually the standard cost sheet. Provide the detail would be total standard unit cost. So this is a standard cost sheet for a 16-ounce bag of blue Cheetos. So this is the corn chips, keripik jagung, yeah. So produced by the Blue Corn Foods. So the production of the corn chips began with the steaming and soaking corn kernels overnight in a lime solution. This process softened the kernels so that they can be shaped into a seed of dough. Jadi prosesnya itu dia produksi corn chips ya. Kemudian mulai dari peeling, kemudian memprosesnya menjadi adonan. So the dough then cut into small triangle chips. Jadi kemudian dipotong gitu kan, kalau like ke jagung tuh biasanya kayak yang segitiga gitu kan. Nah, the chips are tossed in the oven and dropped to the deep fry. Kemudian di deep fryer. After cooking, the chip pass under a salting device. Jadi setelah dimasak nanti dia akan masuk ke salting device buat dikasih garam gitu kan. Nah, substandard chips are sorted and discarded. The chip passing inspection, kemudian di packing. Yeah, the pack the chip are manually packed into boxes for shipping. Nah, apa material yang digunakan di sini? So we can see here, right? So by looking at the standard cost sheet, we can identify what the material that used by the Blue Corn Foods Incorporation. So they use a blue corn, lime, cooking oil, and salt. Right, so this one, and this is the bags for the packaging, right? Okay, so so the package actually is also classified, right, for the direct material. So the Blue Cheetos line has the two types of direct laborer: is the machine operator and the inspector, right? So the variable overhead would be including gas, electricity, right, and water. So both the variable and fixed overhead are applied using the direct labor hours. So this is things having see that. So you have to remember that to produce the 16-ounce bag of blue corn chips, so it would cost around $0.56, right? So So you have to also remember that the company used 18 ounce of the corn to produce the 16 ounce bag of the chip. Jadi raw materialnya, yang pertama itu kan blue corn-nya itu 18 ounce gitu kan ya yang dibutuhkan. Kemudian untuk memproduksi 16 ounce bag of the blue corn chips. Okay, so there are two reasons for this. So first one, the chips are disregarded during the inspection process. Yeah, the company plans on a normal amount of waste. And the second one, the company wants to have more than 16 tons in each bag to increase the customer satisfaction with its product and will be avoid any further problem. So let's have a look at this one. So the standard usage for the variable and fixed overhead is, tied into the direct labor. Okay, so this one variable overhead is 3.825 per direct labor hour, right? So since one bag of the corn chip will be used, this one, 0.0078 direct labor hours. So the variable overhead cost will be assigned for the bag of the corn chip going to be 0.030. Okay. How about the fixed overhead? So the rate is actually 32.050 per direct labor hour. So making the fixed overhead cost will be this amount. Right, so this amount's been rounded, right? Okay, so what sort of thing that the standard cost sheet can be revealed? That can reveal the quantity of each input, right? That should be used to produce 1 unit of the output. See? So this is actually the manufacturing cost, right? So in order to produce 1 unit, for example, of the product, so how much the cost that we need, okay? Right. Okay, I think we're just gonna move to this one. Right, so this is actually, the basic computation, right? To compute the efficiency variance. The manager actually have to able to compute the standard quantity of the materials and the standard hours allowed for the actual output, right? So you can see the example here. So for example, 100 bags of corn chips are produced during the first week of March. So how much the blue corn should have been used for the actual output of 100 bags? Right. So the unit quantity standard is 18 ounce of blue corn per bag. Okay, so the 18 ounce per bag. For 100 bags, so the standard quantity of the blue corn allowed will be the unit quantity standard is 18 ounce of the blue corn times the actual output is, so it's going to be standard quantity 1.8 million ounce. Okay. And if we want to compute the standard direct labor hours, so we can use the machine operator by using as the basic computation. So we see that the unit quantity standard is this one, the machine operator here. The unit quantity standard is 0.0008 hour. So it will be times 100,000 and we got 80 direct labor hours, right? So in order to produce 100 bags of chip. Okay. All right, so I think in the first video, I'm just gonna stop until this point. So please watch the next video we're going to discuss about the variance analysis. Thank you.